Sometimes the deepest betrayals don't announce themselves with a thunderclap. Sometimes they begin with a whisper, a child's whisper, small and uncertain, yet carrying the weight of something terribly wrong. It's in those quiet moments, when the world feels safe, that the foundations can start to crack. Today, we're sharing the story of Marcus Reynolds, a father whose world was systematically dismantled, and how a single, overheard fragment of conversation became the first thread he pulled, revealing a conspiracy that threatened not just his future, but the very lives of his children. Stay with us. This is a journey through profound loss, calculated revenge, and the quiet, unshakable strength found in protecting what truly matters. Marcus Reynolds was a man built on quiet stability. At 41, he carried himself with a certain stillness, a steadiness earned through a tough climb from poverty. Tall, broad-shouldered, with calm eyes that held a hint of weariness but also deep thought. He wasn't flashy. His clothes were simple, tidy. His life revolved around two constants. His work, building a successful development company from the ground up, and his children, 8-year-old Sophie and 6-year-old James. They were his anchor, the reason behind his relentless drive. Having known the sting of abandonment in his own childhood, he was fiercely determined they would never feel that same emptiness. His marriage to Evelyn Hastings, however, had become complicated. Evelyn was beautiful, undeniably charming, the daughter of a powerful state senator. There was an ambition in her, quiet but persistent, that sometimes felt at odds with Marcus's more grounded nature. Lately, a distance had grown between them, an unspoken tension that hung in the air of their large, comfortable home, a home Marcus had worked tirelessly to provide. It was a Tuesday evening, ordinary in almost every way. Marcus was helping James with a puzzle on the living room floor, the kind with oversized pieces showing dinosaurs. Sophie was curled up on the sofa, sketching in her notepad. She had a real talent for capturing things, little moments, faces. Evelyn was upstairs, supposedly on a long conference call for a charity committee she chaired. The house felt calm, settled. Then, James, small and serious, leaned close to his dad, his breath warm against Marcus's ear. He whispered, his voice barely audible, "Daddy, I saw Mommy's phone." Marcus paused, a puzzle piece halfway to its spot. "Oh yeah, buddy? What about it?" He kept his voice light, casual. Kids notice things, often random things. James frowned, concentrating, like he was trying to recall something important. She was texting funny words to Mr. Wallace, Grant Wallace, the district attorney, a man Marcus knew peripherally through political circles, mostly connected to Evelyn's father, Senator Hastings. Marcus felt a faint prickle of unease. Why would Evelyn be texting the DA using funny words? "What kind of funny words, James?" Marcus asked, keeping his eyes on the puzzle, not wanting to make his son feel interrogated. James shrugged his small shoulders. Like, "House empty tonight," and something about "package ready." He looked up at Marcus, his brow furrowed. "Is Mommy sending Mr. Wallace a present?" A chill, cold and sudden, traced its way down Marcus's spine. "House empty tonight? Package ready?" It sounded coded. Wrong. Especially considering Evelyn was supposedly upstairs on a call. Why the secrecy? Why Wallace? His protective instincts, always simmering just below the surface when it came to his kids, flared sharply. He ruffled James's hair. "Probably just grown-up stuff, buddy. Don't worry about it." But his mind was racing. He needed to see those messages. Later, after the kids were tucked into bed, asleep in their rooms filled with drawings and stuffed animals, Marcus felt the quiet of the house press in on him. Evelyn had come downstairs briefly, offered a strained smile, mentioned her call ran late, and then retreated to their bedroom, closing the door with a soft click that felt oddly final. Marcus waited. He listened until the house was completely still, save for the hum of the refrigerator. He walked quietly to the small office nook off the kitchen. Evelyn had recently upgraded her phone. Her old one often lay discarded on the charging stand here, forgotten. His heart hammered against his ribs. He felt like a trespasser in his own home, but James's innocent words echoed in his ears. House empty tonight. He picked up the old phone. It wasn't password protected. Evelyn had always been a bit careless with things like that. He opened her messaging app. His breath caught. There it was. A thread with Grant Wallace. Not just one message, but several recent exchanges, cryptic and unsettling. Confirming timeline. H empty tonight after 9. That was from Wallace. Evelyn's reply. Understood. Package is ready for collection. Ensure clean transfer. Another from Wallace. Asset secured. Team is briefed. No traces. And then, chillingly, from Evelyn. Good. He won't see it coming. The kids are the only complication. Marcus stared at the screen, the words blurring slightly. He won't see it coming. He felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't about a charity committee. This wasn't about sending a gift. This felt dangerous, planned, coordinated, and the casual mention of the children. The only complication. What did that mean? What kind of package was ready? What asset was secured? The dread that had started as a prickle was now a heavy weight in his chest. His mind, usually so clear and strategic, felt clouded with a terrible suspicion. He thought of Evelyn's ambition, her powerful father, her recent coolness towards him. He thought of Grant Wallace, a man known for his political maneuvering. Something was being orchestrated, something aimed squarely at him. He looked back at the last message from Evelyn. The kids are the only complication. That single phrase clarified everything. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about him. It was about his children. And that realization ignited something cold and hard within him. The steady, reserved man felt a surge of pure, protective fury. He didn't know the full picture yet, not even close. But he knew with absolute certainty that he had to get his children out of this house. Tonight, before whatever was planned could unfold. The warning had come not from a formal threat, but from the innocent observation of his 6-year-old son. And Marcus knew, deep in his gut, he had to heed it. The puzzle piece he held earlier felt suddenly insignificant compared to the terrifying puzzle now laid out before him. The first move had to be escape. The decision was instant, absolute. There was no room for doubt, no time for hesitation. The cryptic messages, the mention of his children as a complication, it painted a picture too dark to ignore. Marcus moved with a quiet urgency, the adrenaline sharpening his senses. Every creak of the floorboards sounded amplified in the silent house. He had to be methodical, fast, and above all, silent. He went first to Sophie's room. She was asleep, her face soft in the dim glow of her nightlight, one arm thrown over her favorite worn teddy bear. Her sketchbook lay open on her bedside table, a half-finished drawing of their family, him, her, James, even Evelyn, though her figure looked somehow distant on the page. Marcus felt a sharp pang in his chest, a wave of grief for the life he thought they had, the life that was now revealed as a facade. He gently smoothed her hair back from her forehead, his touch feather-light. He couldn't wake her yet, not until everything was ready. He moved quickly through the house, gathering only the essentials. Passports, birth certificates, a hidden stash of emergency cash he'd always kept, a few changes of clothes for himself, and the kids stuffed into 2 backpacks. He worked automatically, his mind a whirlwind of logistics and fear. Where would they go? He had a remote cabin, deep in the mountains, purchased years ago as a weekend getaway. It was off-grid, secluded, perfect. As he packed a small bag in his own room, his eyes landed on the framed photo on his nightstand. It was from a family trip to the coast maybe 3 years ago. Sophie, beaming, holding up a seashell. James, perched on his shoulders, laughing. Evelyn was there too, smiling at the camera, her arm linked through his. He remembered that day vividly, the salty air, the sound of the waves, a feeling of simple happiness. Had it all been a lie even then? The thought was a physical blow. He couldn't afford to dwell on it now. Action was survival. He paused in the hallway downstairs, near the front door. His gaze swept across the living room, the sofa where Sophie sketched, the rug where he'd wrestled with James just hours before. Memories flooded him. Birthday parties, quiet evenings, the comforting rhythm of family life. It felt like saying goodbye not just to a house, but to an entire chapter of his existence. A life built with hope and hard work, now revealed to be built on treacherous ground. He reached into his pocket and felt the smooth surface of his phone. He needed to make one call. Miguel Ramirez, his oldest friend, his former business partner before Marcus struck out on his own. Miguel was solid, loyal, someone Marcus trusted implicitly. He stepped out onto the back porch, closing the door softly behind him, the cool night air a shock against his skin. He dialed. Miguel picked up on the second ring, his voice groggy. "Marcus? Everything okay? It's late." "Miguel." Marcus kept his voice low, urgent. "I need your help. Something's wrong. Really wrong. I can't explain now, but I'm taking the kids and leaving. Tonight." There was a pause. Then Miguel's voice, suddenly alert. "Leaving? Marcus, what's happened?" I think Evelyn and Wallace are planning something. Something bad. I found messages." He quickly summarized the cryptic texts. "I don't know the whole story, but I can't risk it. Not with the kids." "Wallace? The DA? Oh my gosh, Marcus." Miguel sounded stunned, but immediately shifted into practical mode. Okay. Where are you going? What do you need?" "Heading to the cabin. It's the safest place I can think of. Can you do something for me?" Quietly, "I need someone to look into Evelyn, Wallace, her father, connections, financials, anything unusual. But it has to be completely off the books. Untraceable." "Consider it done," Miguel said without hesitation. "I know a guy, Ethan Cole, ex-military intelligence, now runs a private security firm. Discreet, thorough, very good. I'll reach out to him first thing. You focus on getting the kids safe. Call me when you get there. Be careful, Marcus." "Thanks, Miguel. I owe you. Just keep yourself and those kids safe," Miguel replied, his voice firm with concern. Marcus hung up, a small measure of relief mixing with the overwhelming anxiety. He wasn't completely alone in this. Sophie blinked, rubbing her eyes. "Now? Why? It's a surprise," Marcus repeated, forcing a reassuring smile. "We have to be super quiet, like secret agents. Can you do that for me?" Her intuitive eyes searched his face, sensing the undercurrent of tension, but she nodded, always eager to please her dad. He woke James next, using the same story. James was more confused, wanting to know if Mommy was coming. "Not this time, buddy," Marcus said gently. "This is just a trip for you, me, and Sophie." As he helped James put on his shoes, Marcus glanced back towards the master bedroom. The door remained closed. He felt a strange mix of anger and profound sadness. Was Evelyn sleeping peacefully, unaware he discovered her plan? Or was she awake, waiting? He quickly gathered the children, backpacks slung over his shoulder. He paused at the door, taking one last look around the dimly lit hallway. His hand rested briefly on Sophie's drawing, still on the small table by the stairs, the one she'd made just for him last Father's Day, depicting him as a superhero. He carefully folded it and tucked it into his pocket. An anchor, something real in this sudden nightmare. As they slipped out the back door into the darkness of the yard, heading towards the detached garage where his unassuming SUV was parked, his phone vibrated silently in his pocket. He pulled it out. The screen lit up. Evelyn calling. His heart leaped into his throat. Did she know? Had she heard them? He instinctively tightened his grip on James's small hand. James looked up at him, his eyes wide in the shadows. Then, the little boy's lower lip trembled, and he started to cry softly, fat tears rolling down his cheeks. Not loud, just a quiet, heartbroken sound that tore through Marcus. It wasn't just excitement or confusion anymore. James sensed the fear, the finality. He knew this wasn't just an adventure. Marcus knelt, pulling James into a tight hug, Sophie pressing close against his side. He silenced the call, rejecting it without a second thought. There was nothing left to say. He held his children close for a moment, the weight of their small bodies both a burden and a source of immense strength. This wasn't just an escape. It was a severing, a goodbye to a life that was no longer theirs, perhaps never truly was. He picked James up, took Sophie's hand firmly in his, and hurried them towards the car, melting into the pre-dawn darkness. The silent escape had begun, but the quiet grief was already settling in, heavy and cold. Chapter 3: Orchestrated Betrayal. Host. The drive to the cabin was long and silent, punctuated only by the soft breathing of the sleeping children in the back seat. Marcus drove steadily, his eyes scanning the dark, empty roads, his mind replaying those cryptic messages over and over. House empty tonight, package ready. He won't see it coming. The kids are the only complication. Each phrase felt like a physical blow, chipping away at the reality he thought he knew. They arrived at the cabin just as the first hints of dawn were painting the sky in pale shades of gray and pink. It was nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by towering pines, the air crisp and clean. It felt worlds away from the suffocating tension of their home. Inside, it was rustic but comfortable wooden floors, a stone fireplace, simple furniture. Marcus settled the still sleepy children onto the pull-out sofa, covering them with thick blankets. For now, they were safe, but safety was temporary. He needed answers. He needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Later that morning, after fixing the kids a simple breakfast and reassuring them with a calmness he didn't feel, Marcus connected with Miguel again. Miguel confirmed he'd spoken to Ethan Cole, the security expert. Ethan was already on his way, expected to arrive by afternoon. He's bringing secure communication gear and his own laptop, Miguel said. He understands the need for absolute discretion. Ethan Cole arrived punctually, a man whose quiet demeanor and sharp, observant eyes immediately inspired confidence. He wasn't large or imposing, but he moved with an efficiency that spoke of discipline and experience. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. After a brief, firm handshake, he set up his equipment on the cabin's sturdy oak table. Encrypted satellite phone, laptop, a few small, unobtrusive devices Marcus didn't recognize. Miguel gave me the broad strokes, Ethan said, his voice low and even. Your wife, District Attorney Wallace, potential conspiracy. Let's start with what you found. Marcus recounted the story, starting with James's innocent whisper, showing Ethan the messages on Evelyn's old phone. Ethan listened intently, his expression unreadable. He typed rapidly on his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Okay, Ethan said after a few minutes. Standard encryption on her newer devices, but her online footprint. People get sloppy, especially when they feel secure. He worked silently for a while, the only sound the clicking of keys and the distant chirping of birds outside. Marcus paced the small cabin, the forced inactivity gnawing at him. He checked on the kids periodically. They were drawing at the kitchen table, seemingly content for the moment, blessedly unaware of the storm gathering around them. After about an hour, Ethan looked up. All right, I'm starting to see a pattern. He turned the laptop screen towards Marcus. Evelyn and Wallace have been communicating frequently for months, using burner phones and encrypted apps, but they slipped up occasionally on less secure platforms. It's more than just cryptic texts. There are financial trails. Ethan pulled up documents, offshore account statements, shell corporations, wire transfers. It was complex, deliberately obscured, but Ethan navigated it with practiced ease. Wallace has been funneling money through entities linked, indirectly at first, to your father-in-law, Senator Hastings. Recently, Larger sums have moved into accounts solely controlled by Evelyn. Marcus felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Why? What's the objective? It looks like a coordinated effort to seize control of your company, Ethan stated flatly. Your development firm has several major projects pending approval, projects that require sign-offs influenced by both the DA's office and regulatory bodies connected to the senator. He pointed to another set of files, emails, internal memos, subtly altered reports. They've been planting seeds for months, fabricating evidence suggesting financial irregularities within your company, misappropriation of funds, fraudulent invoicing, the works. The plan, it seems, was to trigger an investigation, led by Wallace's office, naturally. With you discredited, possibly arrested, Evelyn, backed by her father's influence, could petition to take control of the company assets as your spouse, citing your instability or legal troubles. Marcus sank into a nearby chair, the weight of the revelation crushing him. It wasn't just a personal betrayal and affair. It was a calculated, long-term conspiracy involving his wife, her powerful father, and the district attorney. They weren't just trying to push him out. They were trying to destroy him professionally, steal everything he'd built. And the messages? Marcus asked, his voice hoarse. House empty tonight? Package ready? Ethan's expression darkened slightly. That's the more disturbing part. Package ready seems to correlate with the final fabricated documents needed for the investigation. But house empty tonight, combined with assets secured and ensure clean transfer. That sounds less like paperwork and more like personnel. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. Given Wallace's known connections to less than savory elements, and the mention of the children as a complication, it's possible they weren't just planning to frame you. They might have been arranging for your removal. Permanently, the air left Marcus's lungs. Assassination. The thought was monstrous, almost unbelievable. Yet, looking at the cold, hard data Ethan was uncovering, the ruthlessness of the plan. It fit. They wanted him gone, completely out of the picture, leaving Evelyn free to claim his assets and custody of the children, backed by her father's power and Wallace's legal authority. He looked over at Sophie and James, now quietly watching a cartoon on an old portable DVD player he kept at the cabin. Their innocent faces, their vulnerability, a surge of rage, colder and deeper than any anger he'd ever felt, washed over him. This wasn't just about his company or his reputation anymore. This was about his life and, more importantly, the safety and future of his children. Evelyn's betrayal cut deeper than he could have imagined. It wasn't just infidelity fueled by ambition. It was a chilling willingness to sacrifice him, potentially violently, for power and money. And her father, the senator, a man who had presented a facade of paternal warmth, was complicit. Wallace, using his public office for personal gain and criminal conspiracy. The scale of it was staggering, but the shock was quickly being replaced by something else. Cold, hard clarity. The strategic part of his mind, the part that had helped him build his business from nothing, kicked into gear. They thought he wouldn't see it coming. They thought he was easy prey. They underestimated him. They underestimated his love for his children. He looked at Ethan. "Okay," he said, his voice steady now, devoid of panic, filled with a chilling resolve. "They've orchestrated a betrayal. Now we orchestrate a response." The hunted was about to become the hunter. He wasn't just going to defend himself. He was going to dismantle their entire scheme, piece by piece. Starting now, the fury was still there, burning beneath the surface, but it was now channeled, focused. The game had changed. Chapter 4. Blood and Secrets. Host. While Marcus and Ethan worked tirelessly at the cabin, piecing together the intricate web of deceit spun by Evelyn, Wallace, and Senator Hastings, an unexpected communication arrived. It wasn't from Miguel or any known contact. It was a message sent through a heavily encrypted, anonymous channel that Ethan's sophisticated software barely managed to flag as originating from someone attempting contact. The message was brief. I need to talk to Marcus Reynolds. It's about Evelyn and Sophie. It's urgent. NH Marcus frowned. The initials didn't immediately register. Ethan, ever cautious, worked to verify the source without revealing their location. The encryption is professional grade, but the trace is faint. Seems deliberately obscured, but points towards someone connected to the Hastings family network, but not directly to the senator's main lines. Ethan murmured, concentrating. Then it clicked. Nathan Hastings, Evelyn's younger brother. Marcus hadn't seen Nathan in years. He was the black sheep of the Hastings family, estranged from his powerful father and ambitious sister. Rumor had it he was an artist, living a quiet life somewhere on the coast, wanting nothing to do with the political machinations of his family. Why would he be reaching out now? And why mention Sophie specifically? A knot of apprehension formed in Marcus's stomach. Against Ethan's initial recommendation for caution, Marcus felt compelled to respond. There was an urgency in the message, a specific mention of his daughter, that he couldn't ignore. Using the secure channel Ethan provided, Marcus agreed to a brief, encrypted voice call. A few minutes later, the connection crackled to life. Marcus. The voice on the other end was hesitant, strained. It was Nathan Hastings. Nathan? What is this about? Marcus kept his tone guarded. Marcus, I know what Evelyn and my father are doing. With Wallace, I've suspected things weren't right for a while, but I recently found proof. Hard proof. Nathan's voice trembled slightly. They're trying to frame you, destroy you, take the kids. I know, Marcus said grimly. We're figuring that out now. What proof do you have? There was a heavy pause on the other end. Then Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. It's more than just the business fraud, Marcus. It's about Sophie. Marcus's blood ran cold. What about Sophie? Nathan took a deep, shaky breath. Years ago, you remember that long trip you took? Overseeing the foundation work for the Kincaid Tower project? You were gone for almost 3 months. Marcus remembered it well. It was a crucial phase for his company, demanding his full attention. Evelyn had stayed behind, citing her charity work and not wanting to disrupt the kids' routine. Evelyn, she felt abandoned. Nathan continued, his voice barely a whisper now. Neglected. She came to see me. She was angry, hurt, looking for revenge. Marcus, I'm so sorry, we had a brief involvement. Just once. It was a terrible mistake, fueled by her anger and my own weakness. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles turning white. He couldn't speak. I didn't think. I never suspected. Nathan stammered. But then, recently, with everything else I was digging up about her and Wallace, I found some old medical files she'd hidden. Appointment records. Timings. Marcus. Sophie isn't yours. The world tilted. Marcus stared blankly at the rough wooden wall of the cabin. Sophie? His bright, intuitive, wonderful Sophie? The daughter who shared his calm demeanor, his thoughtful expressions? Not his. The pain was instantaneous, visceral, a blinding white light behind his eyes. He felt a wave of nausea, disbelief, and a shattering heartbreak far deeper than the betrayal over his company or even Evelyn's affair with Wallace. How could you know? Marcus finally managed to choke out, the words scraping his throat. The timing, Marcus, Nathan said, his voice full of anguish. The dates line up perfectly. Evelyn knew. She must have known all along. And she kept it secret. Used it, maybe? I don't know. But when I confronted her indirectly, just hinting at what I suspected, her reaction confirmed it. Fear. Then threats. Silence stretched between them, thick with shock and unspoken pain. Marcus thought of Sophie's face, her laugh, the way she'd instinctively reach for his hand. All those years, raising her, loving her. Did it matter? The biological tie felt suddenly irrelevant, and yet, The revelation cut him to the core. Another layer of Evelyn's deceit, perhaps the cruelest one of all. "Why tell me now, Nathan?" Marcus asked, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Because it's monstrous," Nathan said, a surge of passion entering his voice. "What they're doing to you, using the kids as pawns? And this secret, it's all part of their sickness, their greed. And because Sophie deserves better. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts." He paused again heavily. "I have evidence, Marcus. Financial records implicating my father and Wallace directly, communications, everything. And the medical records. I copied it all onto a secure USB drive. It's yours. You can use it to expose them, to protect yourself, to protect her." The mention of the USB drive brought Marcus back to the immediate crisis. Evidence, leverage, but the personal revelation overshadowed everything. He felt numb, adrift. I don't know if I can forgive you, Nathan," Marcus said honestly, the words heavy. "I don't expect you to," Nathan replied quietly. "I wouldn't forgive myself, but I need to do this. For Sophie. She deserves a father who loves her, and Marcus. That's you. It's always been you. Biology doesn't change that. You raised her. You love her. That's what matters." His words, laced with guilt and a strange kind of sincerity, struck a chord deep within Marcus. Despite the shock, the pain, a flicker of something else emerged, and not forgiveness. Not yet, but a recognition of the shared, complex humanity in the situation. Nathan, the estranged brother, was risking everything to reveal a truth that implicated his own family and himself, driven by a belated sense of responsibility. "Where is the USB?" Marcus asked, his voice regaining some of its usual steadiness. "I need to get it to you safely," Nathan said. "They suspect I know something. My father's people might be watching me. We need to arrange a secure handover. Somewhere public, but discreet." They quickly settled on a plan. A busy marina cafe down the coast, 2 days from now. Public enough to deter overt action, crowded enough for anonymity. After the call ended, Marcus sat in silence for a long time, the weight of Nathan's confession pressing down on him. Ethan watched him, understanding without needing words that something profound had shifted. The betrayal was no longer just about money and power. It was about blood, secrets, and the very definition of family. He looked again at Sophie, happily drawing, oblivious to the earthquake that had just rocked her father's world. Nathan was right. Biology didn't change the love. It didn't change the bond they shared. If anything, the revelation intensified Marcus's fierce protectiveness. Sophie was his daughter in every way that truly counted, and he would burn the world down to keep her safe. The shock was still there, a deep, aching wound, but beneath it, his resolve hardened into something unbreakable. He would take Nathan's evidence, expose the conspirators, and secure his children's future. And perhaps, somewhere down the line, he might even find a way to navigate the complex, painful truth about Sophie's origins and the unexpected role her biological father was now playing in their fight for survival. The 2 days leading up to the meeting with Nathan Hastings were fraught with tension. Marcus and Ethan worked relentlessly, analyzing the data they had, preparing contingencies, while Marcus simultaneously tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for Sophie and James. He played games with them, read them stories, took them for short walks in the woods around the cabin, all while carrying the heavy secret of Nathan's revelation and the impending danger of the rendezvous. Every smile he gave his children felt underscored by a fierce, almost desperate protectiveness. Sophie, with her uncanny intuition, seemed to sense his inner turmoil, occasionally giving him a searching look or an extra hug, as if trying to absorb some of his burden. The chosen meeting spot was a bustling marina cafe, overlooking rows of sailboats bobbing gently in the water. It was mid-afternoon, the place filled with tourists and locals enjoying the sunshine. Ethan had arrived earlier, discreetly scouting the area, checking exits, blending into the background crowd. Marcus chose a table outside, ordering coffee, his senses on high alert. He felt exposed, vulnerable despite the public setting. Nathan arrived exactly on time. He looked different than Marcus remembered, thinner, his eyes shadowed with anxiety, but there was a determined set to his jaw. He slid into the chair opposite Marcus, placing a small, nondescript backpack on the empty seat beside him. "Marcus," Nathan greeted him quietly, his gaze flicking nervously around the crowded patio. "Thank you for coming. You said you had something for me?" Marcus replied, keeping his voice low and even, betraying none of the complex emotions swirling inside him, the lingering shock, the raw pain, the grudging respect for Nathan's courage. "It's all here." Nathan nodded towards the backpack. The USB drive with everything, the financial trails, Wallace's communications, the evidence implicating my father, and the medical records. Copies of everything. He leaned forward slightly. "They know I'm digging, Marcus. My father called me yesterday. It wasn't friendly. He warned me to back off, to remember where my loyalties lie." "Loyalty to what?" "To criminals," Marcus asked, a hard edge to his voice. Nathan looked down at his hands. "To the family name, to power. That's all that matters to him. He wouldn't hesitate to silence me if he thought I was a genuine threat." He looked back up, his eyes meeting Marcus's. "Which is why I need to disappear after this. New identity somewhere far away. This is the only way I can try to make things right. Especially for Sophie." Just as Nathan reached into his backpack, Marcus caught a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye. Two men, dressed in dark, nondescript clothing, moving purposefully through the crowd towards their table. They weren't looking around casually. Their focus was intent. Too intent. "Trouble," Marcus said under his breath, his instincts screaming. Ethan, positioned near the cafe entrance, subtly shifted his stance, confirming he'd seen them too. Nathan followed Marcus's gaze, his face paling. "Oh no, they found me. Give me the drive," Marcus demanded quietly, urgently. Nathan fumbled in the bag, his hands shaking, pulling out a small, plain USB stick. As he passed it across the table, the two men broke into a run, closing the distance rapidly. One of them reached inside his jacket. "Go!" Marcus yelled, shoving his chair back. He grabbed Nathan's arm, pulling him up. "Ethan, now!" Ethan moved instantly, intercepting the first man, a swift, brutal takedown that sent him crashing into a stack of empty chairs. But the second man was already drawing a weapon, a handgun, fitted with a silencer. Panic erupted on the patio. People screamed, ducking under tables, scrambling away. In the chaos, the gunman raised his weapon, aiming not at Marcus, but at Nathan. There was a soft thwip sound, almost lost in the surrounding noise. Nathan cried out, stumbling back, clutching his side. A dark stain blossomed on his shirt. Marcus reacted purely on instinct. He shoved Nathan towards the edge of the marina, towards the boats. "This way!" Another silenced shot whizzed past Marcus's head. He grabbed Nathan, practically dragging him now, as Nathan groaned in pain. They scrambled down a short gangway onto a docked speedboat, a small, powerful vessel Marcus recognized as belonging to an acquaintance he occasionally rented from. Thankfully, the keys were usually left hidden on board. Ethan, having neutralized the first attacker, was now engaged with the gunman, creating a diversion, buying them precious seconds. Marcus fumbled for the hidden key under the console, found it, and jammed it into the ignition. The engine roared to life. He cast off the lines with frantic speed, the boat lurching away from the dock just as the gunman, having evaded Ethan, reached the edge, raising his weapon again. Marcus slammed the throttle forward, the speedboat surging out into the open water, leaving the chaos of the marina behind. He risked a glance back. He saw Ethan disappear into the panicked crowd, presumably making his own escape. The gunman stood watching them, momentarily thwarted. Marcus turned his attention back to Nathan, who was slumped against the seat, breathing raggedly, his hand pressed hard against the bleeding wound in his side. "Hang on, Nathan," Marcus urged, steering the boat towards a less populated stretch of coastline he knew, heading for a secluded cove where he could hopefully find help. "Marcus," Nathan gasped, his voice weak. "The drive? Did you get it?" "Yes, I have it," Marcus confirmed, his heart pounding. "Just stay with me. We'll get you help." The boat sliced through the water, the setting sun casting long shadows across the waves. Night was falling fast. Nathan's breathing grew shallower. He looked pale, his eyes cloudy with pain. "It's bad, Marcus," Nathan whispered. "I can feel it." He coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "Listen, if I don't make it, don't talk like that." Marcus cut him off, though a cold dread was settling over him. The wound looked serious, and they were miles from any real medical facility. "No, listen," Nathan insisted, gripping Marcus's arm with surprising strength. "Sophie, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I always wished I could have been a part of her life. But you were the father she needed. The father I never could be." His eyes searched Marcus's face. Can you forgive me, Marcus? For everything?" Looking into Nathan's pain-filled eyes, seeing the genuine remorse, the sacrifice he'd made, the deep wound of the past seemed to matter less than the urgent, tragic present. "There's nothing to forgive, Nathan," Marcus said, his voice thick. "You did the right thing. You were brave." A faint smile touched Nathan's lips. "Thank you." His grip loosened, his eyes fluttering closed. His breathing hitched, then stopped. Marcus stared at him, the silence in the boat suddenly deafening, broken only by the sound of the engine and the waves lapping against the hull. Nathan Hastings, the man who held the secret to Sophie's birth, the man who had provided the key to dismantling a dangerous conspiracy, was gone. He had died trying to atone, trying to protect the daughter he never knew and the man who was raising her. Marcus navigated the boat into the hidden cove as darkness enveloped them completely. He cut the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the profound sense of loss. He sat there for a long time in the dark, the cool sea breeze on his face, the weight of the USB drive heavy in his pocket, and the heavier weight of Nathan's final words echoing in his heart. The fight had just turned deadly. The stakes were higher than ever. And now, fueled by grief and a burning sense of justice for the man lying still beside him, Marcus knew there was no turning back. He had to expose them all, for his children, and now for Nathan too. The hours following Nathan's death were a blur of grim necessity. Marcus, guided remotely by Ethan who had safely extracted himself from the marina chaos, managed to navigate the speedboat to a discreet, prearranged extraction point further down the coast. There, Miguel Ramirez was waiting, his face etched with concern. Together, they carefully moved Nathan's body, ensuring dignity even in these clandestine circumstances. Arrangements were made for Nathan to be taken to a trusted, off-the-books medical examiner who could officially document the cause of death, a gunshot wound, without immediately alerting the authorities controlled by Wallace and Hastings. It was crucial evidence. Back in the relative safety of a new secure location, a nondescript rental house Miguel had arranged, Marcus finally had time to process the violence, the loss, and the heavy weight of the USB drive Nathan had died to deliver. Ethan joined them, his quiet competence a steadying presence. He meticulously analyzed the contents of the drive. "It's all here, Marcus," Ethan confirmed, his voice grim. "Financial records, offshore accounts, laundered money trails leading directly to Wallace and the senator. Encrypted emails outlining the frame-up strategy. The fabricated evidence against your company. And the medical records Nathan mentioned." He paused. "There's also audio. Nathan must have recorded some of his calls. There's a clear recording of Senator Hastings threatening him, telling him to drop his investigation or face consequences. It was a treasure trove of damning evidence." Enough, potentially, to bring down a district attorney and a powerful senator. But they couldn't just hand it over to the local police. Wallace had too much influence there. They needed someone untouchable, someone with federal jurisdiction and a reputation for integrity. Teresa Delgado, Marcus said immediately. He knew Agent Delgado from a complex white-collar case. His company had inadvertently become entangled in years prior. She was FBI, sharp, principled, and immune to political pressure. If anyone could handle this, it was her. Ethan facilitated a secure communication channel. Marcus reached out to Agent Delgado, explaining the situation briefly, emphasizing the urgency and the high-level corruption involved, including the attempt on his life and Nathan Hastings's murder. Delgado, initially skeptical, listened intently as Marcus outlined the scope of the conspiracy and the nature of the evidence he possessed. Her interest peaked when he mentioned Senator Hastings and DA Wallace by name. She agreed to a meeting specifying a neutral, secure location. The meeting took place 2 days later in a sterile conference room in a federal building annex. Marcus, flanked by Ethan for security, met Agent Delgado. She was exactly as he remembered, professional, no nonsense, with eyes that missed nothing. Marcus laid it all out, providing copies of the key evidence from the USB drive, the financial trails, the threatening audio recording, the evidence of the frame-up, and crucially, the coroner's preliminary report on Nathan Hastings. He explained the circumstances of the ambush at the marina, emphasizing that Nathan was killed while trying to deliver this very evidence. Delgado examined the materials, her expression growing increasingly serious. She asked sharp, probing questions, testing the veracity of the information, gauging Marcus's credibility. Marcus answered calmly, factually, his quiet intensity conveying the truth of his ordeal. "This is significant," Delgado finally stated, her tone grave. "DA Wallace, Senator Hastings. These are powerful men. An investigation of this magnitude needs to be airtight and handled carefully." "I understand," Marcus said, "but they tried to kill me. They murdered Nathan Hastings. They were going to take my children. They need to be stopped." Delgado nodded slowly. "We'll take it from here, Mr. Reynolds. We need the original USB drive and your full cooperation. This will likely mean providing testimony. It could get messy publicly." "I'm prepared for that," Marcus replied. "My only concern is the safety of my children." "We can arrange protective measures," Delgado assured him. While the FBI began their discreet investigation, building their case behind the scenes, Marcus knew he couldn't just wait. Wallace and Hastings still believed they were in control. They likely thought Nathan's death had silenced the threat. Marcus needed to strike a blow that would shatter their illusion of power, expose them publicly, and shift the narrative decisively. He learned through Miguel's contacts that Wallace was hosting a major political fundraiser gala in 3 days, a lavish event designed to showcase his influence and bolster his public image ahead of a potential run for higher office. Senator Hastings was scheduled to be the keynote speaker. It was the perfect stage. Working with Ethan's technical expertise, Marcus devised a plan. It was audacious, risky, but necessary. Ethan managed to gain remote access to the audiovisual systems of the upscale hotel ballroom where the gala was being held. It required bypassing sophisticated security, a task Ethan undertook with chilling efficiency. The night of the fundraiser arrived. The ballroom was filled with the city's elite, politicians, business leaders, society figures, all mingling under glittering chandeliers, sipping champagne, oblivious to the storm about to break. Wallace was working the room, exuding confidence, accepting accolades. Senator Hastings stood nearby, radiating patriarchal authority. Marcus wasn't there physically. He was miles away with Ethan watching a live feed of the event on Ethan's laptop. His children were safe, relocated again with Miguel's help, far from any potential blowback. At precisely 9 p.m., just as Senator Hastings took the stage to thunderous applause and began his introductory remarks praising Wallace's unwavering commitment to justice, Ethan initiated the sequence. Suddenly, the large screens flanking the stage, meant to display Wallace's campaign logo, flickered. The senator faltered, confused. Then the screens came alive not with logos but with documents. Offshore account statements bearing Wallace's and Hastings's names. Encrypted messages detailing the plot to frame Marcus. Details of the fabricated evidence. Then, chillingly, audio began to play over the ballroom's sound system. The crystal-clear recording of Senator Hastings threatening his own son, Nathan. "Drop this, Nathan. You don't understand the forces you're playing with. There will be consequences. Severe consequences." Hastings's voice boomed through the stunned silence. Chaos erupted. Gasps, murmurs, shouts. Wallace stood frozen near the podium, his face ashen. Senator Hastings looked utterly bewildered, then horrified, as his own threatening words echoed around the room. Then, the final piece. A stark image appeared on the screens, the preliminary coroner's report detailing Nathan Hastings's gunshot wound. Alongside a brief text overlay, "Nathan Hastings, murdered 2 days after this threat, while delivering evidence of corruption." The room descended into pandemonium. Guests scrambled for the exits. Reporters who were present instantly started broadcasting, their phones held high. Wallace and Hastings were engulfed by a sudden media frenzy, questions flying, cameras flashing. Their carefully constructed facade had crumbled in a matter of minutes, broadcast live to the city. Miles away, Marcus watched the scene unfold, not with triumph, but with a grim sense of satisfaction. It wasn't loud, boastful revenge. It was calculated, precise exposure. He had used their own stage, their own event, to reveal their darkness to the world. Agent Delgado and her FBI team, alerted just moments before the reveal, moved in swiftly amidst the chaos, securing the scene, ensuring Wallace and Hastings couldn't immediately flee or destroy further evidence. Public sentiment, swayed by the dramatic and undeniable evidence, shifted overnight. The narrative of Marcus Reynolds as a potentially corrupt businessman evaporated, replaced by the image of a victim fighting back against powerful forces. Wallace and Hastings became villains in the public eye, their careers and reputations irrevocably shattered. Marcus closed the laptop. The public battle had been won decisively, but the personal one, the fight to heal his family and protect his children, was far from over. Justice had been served, cold and calculated, but the cost had been immense. The fallout from the fundraiser exposé was immediate and seismic. District Attorney Grant Wallace and Senator Hastings were arrested by the FBI within days, facing a barrage of federal charges: conspiracy, fraud, obstruction of justice, and potentially involvement in Nathan Hastings's murder. The evidence Marcus provided, corroborated by the FBI's own investigation, was overwhelming. Their political careers imploded, their reputations were destroyed, and they were entangled in a legal battle that would consume the rest of their lives. Evelyn Hastings, though not immediately arrested due to lack of direct evidence tying her to the murder plot, found herself isolated and disgraced. Her assets were frozen pending investigation into the financial conspiracy. Stripped of her husband, her father's protection, and her social standing, she became desperate, and that desperation led her to make one final, foolish move. Marcus, working closely with Agent Delgado and Ethan Cole, had ensured his children remained hidden and protected during the initial upheaval. They were staying in a quiet suburban home, rented under an assumed name with round-the-clock, discreet security arranged by Ethan. Marcus spent every possible moment with them, trying to create a bubble of safety and love amidst the lingering uncertainty. One afternoon, Ethan alerted Marcus to something disturbing. They had detected faint, intermittent tracking signals originating from near the children's location. It wasn't sophisticated government tech. It felt more personal, amateurish. Ethan quickly triangulated the source. It was coming from inside the house. Marcus felt a jolt of fear. Had someone gotten past security? Ethan calmly initiated a sweep of the house. Within minutes, he found it. Tucked deep inside the stuffing of James's favorite stuffed dinosaur, the one he'd had since he was a toddler, the one he insisted on bringing everywhere, was a tiny, commercially available GPS tracker. The realization hit Marcus like a physical blow. Evelyn. She must have planted it sometime before he fled the house, perhaps anticipating she might need to locate them later. A final, desperate attempt to maintain some control, to find her children, likely with the intention of fleeing or using them as leverage. It was a chilling reminder of her calculating nature, violating even the sanctity of a child's comfort object. Armed with this evidence of Evelyn's attempt to track the children, combined with her known involvement in the financial conspiracy and the clear instability she demonstrated, Marcus's legal team moved swiftly. They presented the evidence to the family court handling the emergency custody arrangements. The judge, already aware of the high-profile criminal case surrounding the family, needed little convincing. Evelyn's actions were deemed reckless and potentially harmful to the children. Marcus was granted permanent, sole custody of Sophie and James. Evelyn's parental rights were severely restricted, pending the outcome of her own likely legal battles. It was a profound relief for Marcus, a confirmation that his children were finally, truly safe under his care. Yet, the victory felt heavy, shadowed by the immense pain and loss that had led them to this point. Now that the immediate danger had passed and a fragile stability was returning, Marcus faced the incredibly difficult task of talking to Sophie about Nathan. He couldn't keep the truth from her forever, especially now that Nathan's name was tied publicly to the case, hailed by some as a tragic hero who exposed corruption. He chose a quiet evening, after James was asleep. He sat with Sophie on the porch swing of their temporary home, the air soft and warm. He started gently, talking about how families are sometimes complicated, how love makes a family more than just biology. He told her about Nathan Hastings, explaining that he was her mother's brother, a kind man who had been very brave. He told her how Nathan had helped keep them safe, how he had stood up to powerful people doing bad things, and how he had tragically lost his life in the process. Then, taking a deep breath, Marcus told her the hardest part, that Nathan was also her biological father. He explained it simply, honestly, emphasizing that it didn't change anything about their relationship. "Sophie," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "being a father, it's about love. It's about being there every day, tucking you in at night, helping you with your homework, cheering you on. It's about my heart, not just biology. You are my daughter. Always. Nothing will ever change that." Sophie listened quietly, her expression thoughtful, her usual intuition evident in her deep brown eyes Marcus now recognized held echoes of Nathan's. She didn't cry. She didn't seem shocked. She simply absorbed the information with a maturity that belied her 8 years. After a long silence, she leaned her head against his shoulder. "So, Nathan gave me my drawing talent?" she asked softly. Marcus had mentioned Nathan was an artist. Marcus smiled through the lump in his throat. "Maybe he did, sweetheart. Maybe he did." A few days later, Sophie came to Marcus with a piece of paper. It was a letter, written in her careful, looping handwriting. She asked him to hold on to it for her, maybe put it somewhere safe. Later that night, alone, Marcus unfolded it. It read, "Dear Daddy, thank you for telling me about Nathan. Sounds like he was brave. I'm sad he's gone. Mommy told me once that you weren't my real dad when she was angry. I didn't understand then, but maybe this is what she meant. It doesn't matter. You taught me how to ride my bike. You read me stories every night. You make the best pancakes. You always know when I'm sad. You may not have made me, but you made me who I am. I love you more than anything. Love, Sophie." Marcus sat there, reading the simple, profound words over and over. Silent tears streamed down his face, tears not of sadness, but of overwhelming love, relief, and a deep, cathartic release. His bond with Sophie wasn't just intact. It was stronger, forged in truth and unwavering love. In that moment, he knew he had won the only victory that truly mattered. He had protected what was irreplaceable. He had affirmed his fatherhood not through blood, but through devotion. And in her own innocent way, Sophie had given him the greatest validation of all. The long, dark chapter of betrayal was closing, making way for a new one, focused solely on healing and building a future for his children, grounded in honesty and unbreakable love. 5 years. That's how long it took for the dust to truly settle, for the echoes of betrayal and violence to fade into a quieter rhythm of life. 5 years for Marcus Reynolds and his children, Sophie and James, to rebuild their world on a foundation of truth, resilience, and unwavering love. They didn't return to the house that held so many fractured memories. Marcus sold it, along with the assets of his old company, severing ties with that painful past. He started fresh, establishing a new, smaller development firm he named Redwood Developments, inspired by the towering, resilient trees near the mountain cabin that had once been their sanctuary. Redwood focused not on flashy, high-stakes projects, but on community-oriented developments. Affordable housing, green spaces, projects that resonated with Marcus's own roots and his desire to build something meaningful, something lasting. Their new home was comfortable, filled with light, laughter, and Sophie's ever-evolving artwork displayed proudly on the walls. James, now 11, was navigating the cusp of adolescence with curiosity and the same sharp intelligence he'd shown as a small boy. Sophie, at 13, was blossoming. She was still intuitive, thoughtful, but carried a quiet confidence. The shadow of the past hadn't defined her. Instead, the knowledge of her origins, handled with love and honesty by Marcus, seemed to have deepened her understanding of the complexities of life and the enduring strength of chosen family. Marcus found a measure of peace he hadn't known before. The relentless drive for external success was tempered by a deeper appreciation for the simple moments, helping James with homework, attending Sophie's art shows, weekend hikes in the mountains. He was still strategic, still capable, but his focus had shifted inward, towards nurturing his children and building a legacy not of wealth, but of integrity and purpose. One of the first major initiatives of Redwood Developments was establishing the Phoenix Scholarship Fund, dedicated to providing financial aid and mentorship for underprivileged youth aiming for careers in architecture, engineering, and urban planning, the fields Marcus himself had fought so hard to enter. It was his way of honoring his own journey, of giving back, of ensuring that other young people facing adversity had a hand up, a chance to build their own stable futures. And there was another legacy being built. Using a portion of the funds recovered during the legal proceedings against Hastings and Wallace, funds traced back to illicit activities, Marcus worked quietly behind the scenes. In the city's burgeoning arts district, a new building took shape. It wasn't grand or ostentatious, but beautifully designed, filled with natural light. When it opened, the sign above the door read, "The Nathan Hastings Art Center." It served as a gallery space for emerging local artists and offered free art classes for children from low-income families. It was a quiet, powerful tribute to the man who had made a fatal choice years ago, but found redemption in his final act. It acknowledged his biological connection to Sophie without overshadowing Marcus's role as her father. It was a testament to the complex, messy, but ultimately hopeful nature of forgiveness and remembrance. Sophie volunteered there on weekends, teaching younger kids how to draw, finding her own way to connect with the memory of the man whose artistic spark she seemed to share. Grant Wallace and Senator Hastings were both serving lengthy prison sentences, their appeals exhausted, their names now synonymous with corruption. Evelyn, after serving a shorter sentence for her role in the financial conspiracy, largely disappeared from public life. One day, a letter arrived for Marcus, bearing a prison postmark. It was from Evelyn. His first instinct was to throw it away unopened. But then he thought of Sophie. He didn't read it himself. Instead, he placed it, sealed, in a safe deposit box along with other important family documents. He wrote a simple note on the envelope, From your mother. For Sophie to read if and only if she ever chooses to. The decision is entirely hers. It was an act of closure, acknowledging the past without letting it dictate the future. He couldn't erase Evelyn from Sophie's history, but he could empower his daughter to decide how, or if, she engaged with that part of her story. Life moved forward. There were challenges, of course, the everyday ups and downs of raising teenagers, the demands of running a business. But underpinning it all was a sense of quiet triumph, a deep peace born not from the absence of storms, but from having weathered them and emerged stronger, more connected, more purposeful. Marcus Reynolds hadn't sought revenge in the fiery, destructive sense. His victory was quieter, more profound. It was in the laughter of his children, the success of his meaningful work, the healing of deep wounds, and the enduring power of love and integrity in the face of profound betrayal. He had protected what was irreplaceable, and in doing so, built a legacy not just for himself, but for the generations to come, a legacy rooted in resilience, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of the human spirit. Marcus's story is a powerful reminder that true strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's found in the quiet resolve to protect, to rebuild, and to choose love even in the face of unimaginable pain. His intelligent, measured response wasn't just about exposing wrongdoing. It was about reclaiming his life and, most importantly, securing the future for Sophie and James, a future built on honesty and unwavering paternal love. It's a testament to the idea that even the deepest wounds can heal, and that legacy is ultimately defined not by what we gain, but by what we protect and what we build for others. What are your thoughts on Marcus's journey? How did his choices resonate with you? We invite you to share your reflections in the comments below. Your insights enrich our community. If stories of resilience, quiet justice, and the strength of the human spirit speak to you, please consider subscribing to TK Revenge Story for more narratives like this one. And finally, telling these stories takes time and care. If you feel moved to support our channel, you can use the Super Thanks feature below. We believe that giving in any form is often a part of our own healing journeys. Thank you for listening and for being part of this space.